What is going on, everyone? It's Sean with another Tesla video, and in this one I want to break down and compare the Model S versus the Model X versus the Model 3. If you're considering one of these, this video might be helpful. In fact, I'm actually in this situation right now, which is why I decided to do the video. I thought it might be helpful to talk through some of the things that I'm thinking about, weighing the pros and cons of all three options. But before I do that, I want to invite you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you are in the market, you love following Tesla, the videos that I produce are all about making that purchase decision in buying a Tesla and some of my findings as a Tesla owner. So if you're in the market, you love following Tesla, this is definitely a channel that you should subscribe to. Also, if at any point during this video you find it interesting or valuable, hit that like button. It helps create more exposure for my channel and my videos. And if you are in the market for a new or inventory Tesla, feel free and use my referral link down in the description of this video. Now, let's dive into some of the stats. All right, so the purpose of this video really is to dissect some of the pros and cons of each Model S, X, and 3. I've considered all three. In fact, before the Model 3 launch or release announcement, I was really only considering the S or the X, but now the 3 is kind of in that consideration as well for a few reasons. So some of the things that are top of mind to me or important to me. Number one is range, probably the most important thing. In fact, if you've been following my channel for a little while, you probably have been thinking, what is going on with this guy? Why is he driving Model S with such small range? This guy really needs a lot of range. Well, I'm thinking that as well. And so range is probably the top consideration of mine. How far does it go? And as I mentioned, up until they had made the announcement for the Model 3, I was really only considering the S or the X and heavily leaning towards the S at the largest battery capacity. But secondly, the other thing that I'm considering is the cost. What is the cost? Range and cost. If I could find a way to get 300 plus miles of range and spend less, that's probably going to be an ideal situation for me, but let's go ahead and break this down. So for the Model S, when I configured my S, and below you'll see some of the things that make it this price. You can obviously get it for less expensive if you buy a smaller battery pack, if you forego some of the bells and whistles like the premium upgrade package. But in my situation, the total comes out to $107,000. I'm also going to factor in some of the discounts that I anticipate receiving. Number one being the Colorado tax credit for an EV, which is $5,000. The federal tax credit for purchasing a new EV at $7,500. And then the inventory discount. This is if you go and you buy from Tesla a show model car, one of those that sits in the store that people sit in, or you buy one of the test vehicles that you go out and you test drive. It's got some miles on it, therefore they discount it. I averaged this out. In fact, when I went and I took a look at teslainventory.com, which is a super helpful website, I kind of did a roundabout average for, there we go. So I did a roundabout average for the discounts that I was seeing here for new inventory vehicles. So I just kind of carried that over and rounded to about an $8,000 discount if I chose to buy an inventory car versus a brand new custom-made car. Model X 100D, $113,000 with the same discounts. The Model 3, now I'm comparing the long range 310 mile Model 3 at $54,000. I still get to take advantage of the tax credits, but since at this very moment there's no inventory or test drive Model 3s, this is at zero. If let's say in the next 3 or 4 months when they start rolling out a few more Model 3s, maybe, just maybe, this will come down to, let's say, 32,000 or so, 33,000. So right off the bat, you can kind of see here what makes sense and what I'm kind of leaning towards as far as cost. If it was just comparing cost, the Model 3 definitely would be the winner. Now, curb rate and gross vehicle weight. Why did I put these in here? My first objective was to see, do any of these qualify for what we have in the US, a tax deduction called the Hummer tax credit. Basically, it's a $25,000 tax credit. Sorry, a $25,000 tax deductible, which is different from a credit, for vehicles that weigh between 6,000 and I believe 14,000 pounds. So I wanted to know if any, which I knew the X did, but I was curious to know if any of the others did, if the gross vehicle weight was over 6,000. You can see the S just a hair under. Model X definitely qualifies for the $25,000 tax deduction because it's a heavyweight SUV. Model 3, pretty far under. So I looked at this and I decided to leave it out of factoring in total cost for me, just because I think it would be easier, and I don't really have a full understanding of this $25,000 business tax deduction. Delivery. This is something that's also probably good to consider if you're in my shoes and you're comparing all three. Which one should you do? Delivery for S or X is 3 weeks to 2 months. 3 weeks if you buy an inventory vehicle. You're going to move through that process very quickly. If you buy custom, it's probably more like a month and a half to 2 months. And with the Model 3, who knows, really. My estimated delivery says October to December of 2017, this year, the year in which I'm recording this. But for some of you, it could be up to 2 years in which you get your Model 3. So something to consider. And there's really not a whole lot of data that shows when people are going to get those first deliveries. So could be 3 months, could roll into 2018, even for Tesla owners who put down a reservation on day one. Range. Like I said in the very beginning, this was another thing that I was heavily considering. It's important to me that I'm not in that situation where I have to charge to 100% every day like I'm doing now with my 60 kilowatt hour battery that gets 200 miles of range. I'm doing, in most cases, on most days, 150 miles of driving a day, sometimes more. So charging to 100% is almost a must every day. I'll probably do another video on that because I get a lot of questions and a lot of negative comments on my videos saying, well, you're not supposed to charge to 100%. I'll explain that in another video. So the S is definitely at the top as far as range goes, battery range, at 335 miles. Or 539 kilometers. X, 295. The Model 3, 310. This is something that's really interesting, and I'll just kind of hypothesize here for a moment. Since they announced the Model 3 at 310 miles, you're pretty close to the Model S. And so I've got this feeling that they may make an update to the S and the X and give them more range and create even more of a distance between the two. If they did that, if they created a longer range battery for the S and the X, I might be swayed more towards the S or the X, really. All right, so trunk size is another consideration for me. I've got 2 kids. I'm married, I have 2 kids, and for those that are parents watching this video, you know exactly what I mean. Along with kids comes a lot of extra things. Diaper bags, you've got shoes and extra clothes, you've got strollers, and that stuff needs to go somewhere. If I buy the Model 3, I've got 15 cubic feet of trunk space in the front and back. Model S, 30. I'm very familiar with this. In fact, mine probably has a little bit more because mine's rear-wheel drive, and it's one of the earlier models, which the front trunk is more spacious than the newer rear-wheel drive S's. So 30 cubic feet, and then If I were to buy the X and I were to fold down the third row, I would get 88 cubic feet with that combined with the front trunk. So that's one of the reasons why I probably would consider the X. I've got a family, and along with that family comes a lot of extra things. One of the other things that I didn't put in this list here is the ease of getting into the second row, especially with car seats. I had the opportunity to test drive or borrow a Model X for a day and a half or so a couple of months ago, and the ease of putting the car seat into an X was 100 times better than putting the car seat into my Model S. So also consider that, not only trunk space, but those Falcon Wing doors just create a lot of room to put stuff in and get people in and out. All right, air suspension was another important one to me. Air suspension allows for a few benefits. Number one, if you need to raise the car, you're going up a steep hill or an inclined driveway, it's perfect for that. Right now I don't have air suspension. And so in some cases you can hear that grinding of the driveway or speed bump because I don't have the ability to raise and lower the car. Also, because I live in Colorado, we get snow, and it's nice to be able to raise the car if I need to, if it's very thick snow. So keep that in mind. At this point, there's no air suspension offered for the Model 3 as of yet. That probably will come later in 2018, but if I were to buy the Model 3 right now, that would be a significant disadvantage to me. Sub-Zero weather package. This one is a yes for all three. Now, the one question that I have about the Model 3 is it doesn't explicitly say Sub-Zero weather package like it does for the S and the X. Free supercharging is another distinct difference between the S, X, and 3. If I were to buy an S or an X right now, I would absolutely get the free supercharging for life as an incentive for using a referral code. Mine's in the description if you choose to do that. Model 3, you're going to have to pay per use, and I believe it's about 20 cents per kilowatt hour, which for me, if I compare that to charging at home and charging at the supercharger, charging at home is about half the cost of charging at a supercharger. So mine's about 11 cents per kilowatt hour. All-wheel drive, another distinction here. So S and X both offer it standard, whereas at the moment the Model 3 does not offer it at all, with the intention of adding it as a feature between June and August of 2018. Premium package, yes on all three. That's something that's offered to date, which I'm definitely interested in for sure. Enhanced Autopilot. This is something that is offered for all three right now too. Since I do quite a bit of driving, I'm looking forward to that added feature that I don't have currently in my Model S 60 kilowatt hour 2013. This is going to be nice because I think it's just going to make driving that much easier. I had the chance of driving a loaner vehicle which had Autopilot 1.0 last week, and it was fantastic. I loved it. I loved using it, particularly on highway for long stretches, as well as in bumper-to-bumper traffic. So, what's the final outcome? Which one would I choose if I were to pull the trigger right now? I think it would be the Model 3, again, because cost and range. I can get a Model 3 for $41,500 with 310 miles of range on the battery pack. If you were to ask me today, I'd go that route. Now, if in the next several months Tesla introduces a longer range Model S or Model X, that might sway me towards one of the three, and probably the S. Thank you so much for tuning in and watching this video. Really appreciate it. If you found it valuable, hit that subscribe button and hit that like button. It would really mean a lot to me. Also, if you are in the market for a new or inventory Model S or X, go ahead and use my referral link down below. It gets you some benefits, like through the end of this month, $1,000 off the purchase of an S or X as well as free supercharging for life. So with that said, I'll go ahead and wrap up and see you on the next video.